I really like to remind everyone that Russia was very eager to participate in the first significant peace settlement that took place in 2022. And there was this round of talks in Istanbul in 2022, in May of 2022, where both sides were very close to reaching a deal, not a ceasefire, but a deal. It was not 100% agreed upon, but there were just a few details to work out. But Ukraine actually was that side that backed away from that deal. So were they behaving irrational? No, I think they were very rational. They just thought that, with all the Western backing, with billions of dollars in weapons, with the intel and all that, they could just defeat Russia on the ground and regain all the territories that they lost by force. Well, that didn't happen. And so, coming back here to 2025, my personal belief, like I have no, what do you call it? I don't have an in with any in the position of power within the Russian government, but my personal belief as someone who lives here is that Moscow would really like to have a peace deal. It's not offered one. I think what it was offered is a ceasefire, unconditional ceasefire, but that's, I can understand why Trump seeks something like this, because this would help his image as a peacemaker, and he would really like to take credit for any peace settlements that are happening around the world at the moment. But, I guess the way Putin sees it is that he is not interested in a temporary solution or in freezing the conflict, but would rather have a more sustainable settlement that would ensure that, both sides that will remain neighbors for the foreseeable future will have some sort of a meaningful way of living together. I just think that there's nothing on the table at this point to agree to. I guess that's
well, and then we're going to see how that's going. I don't know if the word is escalating or deteriorating, because over the weekend here's how former General Jack Keane viewed this on Fox News.
I think the president demonstrated extraordinary patience in trying to work with Putin, despite all the happy talk and playing tough on the battlefield that was going on for weeks and weeks, and then ultimately completely frustrated with him. And Putin wanted that to happen, but he thought the president would likely pull away from supporting Ukraine. And so Putin has miscalculated here. And what we got here is clearly the president's decisiveness to support Ukraine. There's still arms flowing right now from the previous administration and the Congress's support for funding that took place many, many months ago. So that is happening. It paused for a while, but this week, 155 artillery ammunition is flowing again because of the president's order. 2 PAC-3 missiles for the Patriot system flowing again, and HIMARS long-range missiles flowing again.
So apparently that's the response to Putin's desire for a negotiated settlement. You say they're looking for some kind of a deal, and so far all we're given is, well, we're going to keep the arms flowing, and like you said, we want a stop of the war with no conditions and no end state, etc. And Russia is apparently not interested in that. So the question is, if Trump continues on down his path and Putin continues on down his path, what's going to happen on the ground?
Well, that's a good question. But I think another thing that we should, take a look at is that, right after Trump announced that he's going to, right after he announced that he was pissed, with Putin for not agreeing to a ceasefire, and that he's going to apply tariffs, 100% tariffs in Russia. There were a lot of meetings between Sergei Lavrov, Russia's foreign minister, and his Chinese counterpart. Then Lavrov met with Xi Jinping in China. This just happened in the span of a couple of days. So I guess what happened, it's my guess, that probably Moscow went to ask China, hey, what if Trump, does what he promised and put tariffs on you? Will you gonna support us? Are you gonna? Can we count on you? So we don't know what happened behind those doors, but this is something to look at for sure. And about the tariffs, this is also interesting, like how far can Trump really go? Because we all saw that U.S. tried to impose tariffs on China. This didn't have anything to do with Russia, but I think it was around 34%, and it was just too much. And he had
to got up to 145% at one point before it came back down.
Yeah. So he had to cut down, and now they came to some sort of an agreement, and now he's going to put another 100% tariffs in China, and not just China, but also India and Brazil. Yeah. Can he really do this, or this is just a bluff? I guess. Well, maybe Putin is not convinced.
Probably for good reason, because we have some experience with that. One other thing I want to show you from the U.S. side here before we're going to get into some an article that was in the Washington Post, which I think is really encapsulates the different way that the two sides see this. And I'm going to get your view on how the Russians see these a number of specific issues. But first of all, this one here kind of even got me a little bit surprised that I saw this morning. Washington Post columnist Max Boot actually says that Ukraine is winning the war.
They have said that Ukraine just can't win this war in Ukraine.
Well, I think the evidence shows that Ukraine is winning the war, because since the initial Russian invasion, the initial Russian invasion was actually in 2014, but since the Russian invasion ramped up in 2022, Russia did make some immediate gains, but since then, there's hardly been any change on the battlefield. Russian troops are advancing at a pace slower than troops were on the Western Front in World War I. For very minimal gains, Putin is paying a very heavy price. Russia has lost roughly 1 million troops killed or wounded, huge numbers of tanks, artillery pieces, armored personnel carriers, aircraft, ships, all these other types of military hardware. So Russia, and despite all that, Ukraine continues to function as a pro-Western democracy. I think anybody who's been to Ukraine during the war, as I have been, comes away incredibly impressed.
I find that hard as somebody with combat experience, and has certainly studied war most of my adult life, to see how you can claim one side is winning when you actually detail how much the other side is advancing, and the other side is in the losing side. Whether it's fast or slow or medium speed, if you're losing territory in men, I don't know how you consider that a win. How do you respond to that?
I've encountered these comments a lot, not just from that journalist, but elsewhere. But you can flip it around and say, Russian regime hasn't changed. Putin's still in power, and Ukraine also lost 1 million soldiers or sustained 1 million casualties, and its economy has taken a toll, and it hasn't regained its 1991 territories. So I'm just using the very same arguments that this journalist used, and just in a reverse situation. Does that constitutes Ukraine's win? I don't think so. And there's this straw man argument that I always, run into a lot, is that, Russia promised to take Kyiv in 3 days, but it failed. I've never actually heard anyone saying this.
The only one I ever heard say it, and I did hear it, it was Mark Milley, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, who said that he thought that Kiev could fall in 3 days, right before the war started, not afterwards. I've never seen anybody from Russian side say that.
Exactly, not in public, not that I know of, and so you have this argument that Russia allegedly said that it would take Kiev in 3 days, and it fails, and then Russia failed to achieve its goals. Well, I don't know. I would say that Russia does pay a price for taking part in this war. There is no way to sugarcoat this. We have losses. We have casualties and all that, and this is has put some burden on the economy, absolutely. But how do you know if a country is winning or losing? If you look at the map, Russia's been advancing. Yes, there was tactical gains, but as I mentioned, one of the perspective that I've heard is that it's not about the territory that you gain, but how much losses, how much constraints you put on the enemy side. Probably, they might think that one day it will just the Ukraine's army will just collapse because it won't have enough resources and stuff like this, and then this advancement would go from being tactical and small to strategic and operational.
Yeah.
It's just hard.
And I want to ask you, speaking of the losses that the Russian side suffer, that's a number I keep hearing a lot by a lot of Western media and officials, is that Russia suffered well over 1 million casualties. They, of course, they're mum on the side of the Ukraine. Other sides are not so mum. But what is your, and I know Russia doesn't release official stats, but what's the best you can gather? How many has Russia actually lost, killed and wounded?
No, Daniel, I'm not going to go in there. I just, I have no idea. I really don't. It's going to be just a shot in nowhere from my side.
What do people in Russia think, though? Whatever the number actually is, do they feel like it's too high, that it's sustainable, that it's necessary because of what's at stake? How do the Russian people feel?
Well, I don't know how to put it, but for one, I can't really say that I don't have people who went to the front from the circles I run into. I do know of people who went there. I do know of families where their loved ones lost their lives, soldier on the battlefield. But maybe it's not that significant or not that bad yet. I don't know, because I don't see this being talked in public, or some kind of a behind the door rage that is growing. Maybe it's just not in the circles that I run into, Yeah, but it's really hard to guess, because again, I live here, and I know that when you lose someone in war, that's a tragedy. You can't kind of downplay this. Even when you lose one life, that's a big tragedy for your family. So I can't say that we'll just shrug this off and we'll just keep going. Yeah, go on. It's not like that. It's not like this. But when people claim so nonchalantly that Russia is at the end of its ropes and it's lost just billions of people and it's just going to collapse tomorrow, those claims seem far-fetched.